Il gelato da vita. Gelato has the ability to make anybody just really happy.
Hi, I'm Tanda Croce, and this is Find Your Dolce, the new podcast where we explore joyful living and how to create your Dolce Vita life. I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for joining. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of Find Your Dolce. Thank you for being here. Today we are with Stephanie Tucci. She is an amazing baker. She is the Gelato Queen in Toronto. She won the Gelato Festival competition and she was the top 3 in the Summer Baking Championship. She has an amazing bakery full of delicious goodies and she just became a new mama. Welcome, Stephanie. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to reconnect and talk to you here.
Yes, we have a beautiful journey filled with language, music. It's been a few years now, so I'm so happy to finally connect on this podcast and explore your journey and let everybody know the amazing things that you do. Let's start off with, how did this all get started? How did you know I want to be a baker?
It's a fully loaded question. So it's a fully loaded question that took a lot of like turns and flips to kind of get where we are now. Because I actually started in the savory world. I was doing savory cuisine for almost 10 years before I switched to pastry. And the reality is, I think I always knew I wanted to be in dessert and in the dessert world. However, in my first sort of like real kitchen job in New York, I worked for like a really like rough and tough kind of chef. And, this is before like all the movements have happened, right? So this is before. And he had said to me, I told him, like, I expressed my interest in the pastry kitchen. And he said, don't be a typical woman. Only women work in pastry. So he's like, if you want to really know what it's like, come to the savory side. And back then I was like, yes, chef. Okay. I will do whatever. And that did impact me because I wanted to go to the dessert side of things, but I had this image of, oh no, I have to prove myself. I have to prove my worth. Let me stay on the hot side. And I do think maybe if he had never said that, the trajectory would have been a little bit different. But here we are, years later. I'm glad I, made the switch into the dessert world, which we will get into.
Right. Wow. That's a very interesting twist. So I'm happy too that you made the change because your skills are outstanding in baking. So just imagine if you hadn't followed your heart. Well, you are Italian. So why don't you explain a little bit about your background and how it influenced your path?
Right. So, it's interesting. I don't feel like I have the typical story of like, you hear a lot of beautiful stories around, I'm inspired by cooking because of my grandparents, or I got into this industry because of my nonna, or you hear a lot of that. And for, I would say the first 8 years, my story was a little bit different. And I've actually never told this story. So this is like an exclusive. So I grew up with like a really beautiful family setting. I'm very fortunate to have that. I had weekly dinners with my mom's side of the family every Thursday. My grandfather was very adamant about this. And I grew up around them and their cooking style. They're from Abruzzo, and the food was always very fresh, very beautiful. And even a simple meal, it just felt very comforting. And I grew up around that. And I think out of like all the grandkids and out of all of, his kids, I was the one that really was like I was obsessed with watching them in the kitchen and I wanted to continue this. I wanted to learn. I wanted to know what his garden was like. I wanted to know everything. And I also grew up with Calabrese's grandparents who on the total opposite side of things, like the food was completely different, but just as good in a different, in a whole different spectrum. And then when I was 19, my grandfather passed away. And when that happened, it really removed me from my culture. And a big part of that was in high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I always did love food. And I always had this dream of like doing something with my grandfather. And 2 weeks before he passed away, he said to me, I'm going to retire when I get out of here and we're going to open a bakery. He said, you're going to go to culinary school and we're going to open a bakery. And I was like, yes, this is the plan. This is what I'm going to do. But then he passed away and I no longer could see the vision because he wasn't here. So I went complete opposite. I went to school for health and science. I thought I was going to become a physiotherapist. And, I was young, so I didn't really understand grief. I was sad, but I didn't know how to deal with it. So I felt like that was a way of, it was my way of handling grief. Let's just run from the culture, run from this goal because it's going to remind me too much of him. And for years, I was a personal trainer. I was going to nutrition school. I did all the things that were completely opposite. I went on the total like health kick. I only ate health supportive food. Like it really was the complete opposite of where I wanted to go. And then a few years later, I realized, okay, I should still go to culinary school, but I still wanted it to like not have anything to do with the culture. It was a little obnoxious when I think about it now. Like I was just like, I don't wanna listen to Italian music. I don't wanna eat Italian food. I don't wanna go to this Italian wedding. I would eye roll at people who had that because it just like it was this like resonating pain for me that I couldn't handle. And then I went to culinary school, did that. I started working in kitchens. I had my first executive chef role. When I left that position, I was just like looking for a change. And Rob Gentile, former chef from Toronto, was hosting culinary retreats in Italy. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to go to this. I'm off work. I'm just going to go. And so, what a life I used to have. I could book Italy on a whim. So, I booked this trip. I go to Italy and I started to have this awakening, like, okay, maybe I can step back into my culture. Maybe I'm ready for that. And we were in Umbria and we were in a small town and there was a man grilling sausages over charcoal. And I have this picture of these sausages and the smell, it was like, when someone says their life flashed before their eyes, I feel like I had that, but with memories of my grandfather. That smell was so specific and I felt like it was him standing there being like, "It's okay. Like, you can do the thing without me because I'm still here." And everything changed in that minute. I was like it was 8 years of running from my culture, and then all of a sudden, I was like, "I need to get back to understanding where I came from, my roots, the language, the music, the food," and everything changed in that moment.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That's such a beautiful story. And I love that, you know what? It was first of all in Italy because Italy's magical on its own. So it's beautiful that you had this like extra magical experience there. But I really do agree with you. I think that, that was like definitely a sign. So that's amazing.
Mhm.
And you mentioned that you reconnected then with language, with music, with all these things. And I think that's where I kind of came in at one point because you studied Italian with me. Thank you for choosing me on that journey. That was a lot of fun. But have you found that like Italian language or even music, has it influenced how you approach your baking role?
Definitely. Think at the time, because I was so far removed from the culture, I was listening to all Italian music, right? I was listening to like the new stuff. I was listening to Italian rap. I was listening to the old school. I was really just like surrounding myself with it. And I found that it did help me because at this point, then I was kind of like trying to figure out how to get back to Italy to study and work, right? And I wanted an understanding, at least a baseline understanding of the language. And I did find that like hearing the music, singing along with the music, even if I didn't understand it, it was allowing me to like spitfire these words out and like, oh, what does this mean? Oh, what does that mean? And every time I had the music on, when I was learning, when I was traveling, when I was exercising, it could be anything. I just had it was like this reinforcing feeling of like, yeah, like Nonno said it's okay. Like Nonno said I could still do it. And so it really just gave me this like beautiful harmony, to be honest with you.
Oh, I love that. As a language teacher who loves music and encourages music in learning language, I love that story. And I do agree. I think that even if you don't understand everything, there is something within the music, and this goes for any culture, something within the music that carries a piece of the culture, of the ways, of the intonation, the cadence, all those things. So it is pretty important to connect those two. Is there a certain phrase maybe? Is there any sort of thing that sticks out in your mind in terms of language that comes to you when you're baking or cooking?
Well, it's interesting you say that. It's not really like I wouldn't say it's a phrase that is specifically dedicated to baking, but it was a phrase that one of my mentors in Italy said on the first day, like this is before he even became my mentor. And I walked into his class and he said, Il gelato da vita. And I kind of looked at him like, what? Like I was like if gelato's giving life. Like I couldn't really understand like the purpose of that. And he wrote it on the board. And so like me, I'm a nerd. It's like I wrote it in my notebook and I'm like, maybe this is gonna go somewhere. And the way he explained it was, gelato has the ability to make anybody just really happy. Even if you're dairy free, there's plenty now of really good dairy free, gelato options out there. But then he took that as far to say like one single biscotti can make somebody really happy. One single slice of cake can make somebody really happy. It doesn't need to be fancy. Sure, all these things have like a technical sort of background and how we create them or whatever. But it's the simplicity in a single scoop of gelato on a cone that can turn somebody's day around. And that's the magic of this type of dessert and why we do it. And that has held so much truth for me. So, like, regardless of the fact that maybe some of the cakes I make are like very out there or whatever, it always for me comes back down to the most simple things and that I just want to make people happy through dessert.
Wow, I love that. That's it. I'm gonna stick with that sentence too now. That's a
You
cool
went as
message.
far to say that like gelato belongs a part of a healthy diet. And I do get that, like we're not eating a bowl full. We're having a single scoop in a cup or a cone. And there's a very big difference in how we enjoy that versus like gorging a whole pint, a very big difference.
Yeah, everything in moderation, right?
Absolutely.
Wow. So, okay, so you definitely got that beautiful phrase and, this perspective of gelato. What else did you take home from these amazing culinary trips that you took to Italy?
Well, a big part of it was just food understanding as well. So again, prior to going back to Italy to study and work, I found myself the first few restaurants I was at and positions I had, it was all very geared towards like health supportive cooking, right? And again, nothing wrong with that. I learned so much. It's allowed me now to be very versatile when somebody says like, "Hey, I need something gluten free," or "I need something dairy free," or like accommodating to these allergies. So it gave me such a good baseline. But I found myself at one point feeling like I was, for the lack of better words, like drinking the Kool-Aid with it too much. Like I became very obsessed about it and it was taking me away from what real food actually was. And my snapping point where I was like, I can't do this food anymore was a customer came in and she asked, and we did a lot of custom things at this place I used to work. And she said, "Hey, can I speak to the chef?" And so like I come out and she's like, "I'm wondering if I can place a custom dessert order." And I said, "Sure." So what are you looking for? And she's like, "I'm looking for keto cannoli." And I was like, I was like, okay. And I always want to understand the reason why. Like, are we talking about an allergy? How strict do we have to be in the kitchen? Let me know the full story. And she kind of laughed and said, "Well, if they're keto, I can eat six and not one." And I felt like my brain was malfunctioning a little bit because I was like, what? And so I kind of made a joke. She didn't think it was a joke. And I obviously apologized, but I was like, if I make you keto cannoli, Italy's going to sink. Like Italy is going to go there. It's going to crash. I was like, it is going under. And I kind of laughed, but I was like, oh, she's serious. And in that moment, I realized we are so disconnected from food that we cannot just enjoy one single, like, not doesn't have to be anything large or crazy, just a standard size cannoli that is really well made and really delicious. We are no longer in this mindset where we can just sit and have one, maybe with an espresso, maybe with whatever it is that you prefer. But we're thinking, why would I just have one when I could have six and still make it healthy, right? And of course, I'm taking allergies out of the equation. This is not in regards to anybody with an allergy. And I was like, we are so disconnected from how we eat, from our relationship with food, and from the quality of our food. And I really wanted to step away from that style of food I had been working with for so long and get back to real quality food and helping people understand that like a single slice of cake should just be enjoyed as is. And we walk away, we feel satiated, we feel good about it, we feel good about how it was made and be done and be happy instead of obsessing. Well, if I make it sugar free, calorie free, dairy free, all the things free, I can eat the whole cake, you know?
Yeah, no, I do agree. I think the perspective we need to check is maybe quality over quantity. And I'm going to dare say that that's maybe a North American lens
Mhm.
too, right? Because it's always about getting bang for your buck. So it's like, sometimes there's a really beautiful restaurant and they serve really small portions and people are like, "Oh my gosh, I have to pay that much and I'm only getting that little." But you're not understanding it's not about the size, it's not the portion, it's the quality of the food. You'll still be full, you'll still have this amazing dinner or, experience with the food, but some people really don't get that. Yeah.
Exactly. And it was Italy that really like shape shifted that for me, where of course, it's It's funny because I often hear the phrase, "Well, I went to Italy. I have celiac disease. I went to Italy and I could eat all the food." And my response is, "Well, then you don't have celiac disease because celiac disease exists in Italy. Like I was there. I worked at restaurants that, people would come in and we would have to alter these things for them. It exists there. It exists everywhere." And yes, of course, like the quality of food, things are different there, but it wasn't about so much the diet culture. It was about understanding how to eat, understanding what real food looks like, understanding how to prepare food without like all the fuss and the noise. And that is really what changed my perspective on food and allowed me to say, like, these things are not the enemy, it's how we approach it. And there was just so much food clarity after spending as much time as I did there.
That is so cool. And you know what? We do know the food is better in Italy. Like in terms of what you were just saying, it's just prepared differently, different
Sure.
ingredients. But it's interesting how the actual even just perspective, as you're saying, is totally different. Speaking of which, is there a certain region that you visited that stuck with you a little bit more that you would even go back to, perhaps?
I so it's interesting because like, so much of my roots are not in the north of Italy at all. But I fell in love with it there. I would love to go back to just the region itself. I would love to go back to Piemonte as somebody who's not working and or studying and really go back in the fall and enjoy the wine culture there because I really fell in love with it. Uh, and I would like to be there as somebody who's just now vacationing, who's just like on a holiday. But I loved it. And I think Italy in the fall and winter months is not explored enough. We always see like on Instagram, the summer in Amalfi, the summer here, the summer in Sicily, and of course it's beautiful. Of course we love these beaches, right? But I got to see Italy at Christmas time and it was the epitome of magic. Yes, it's snowing, but it's so magical and dreamy. And so I would love to go back but be there as somebody who's just sort of on holiday through those colder seasons and do all the winter things because it's just as stunning over there. So that's probably something I would like to do next.
Yes, and I'm on that vein, same vein with you. So if you go, I'm coming because I I've, I've always said I want to do Italy at Christmas. It just looks magical. Europe in general, I think, is a little
Yes.
more
Yes.
magical just with, the environment and whatnot. But
Yeah. The
yeah, I
Christmas
totally agree.
markets, like the Christmas markets itself, I went to one and well, I shouldn't say I went to one. I went to multiple, but in like the same area. But the fact that like, you know, it's also very different going to a Christmas market there, going to a Christmas market here, where I feel like here we're paying for tickets and the lines are so crazy and everything is like a production. There it's so chill. Like people are walking the streets with a glass, like a physical glass of mulled wine. They're supporting local vendors. Nothing is crazy, but it's so beautiful. And you just feel this sense of like camaraderie with the town and or the community of people coming together to like, this is where we're gonna buy our gifts and this is where we're gonna grab our little snack for the day. It's truly pure magic.
Oh,
No,
okay. I want to go even more now.
you have to.
That's amazing. Oh, wow. Okay, so coming back to Canada, let's think about your this whole thing with gelato. So you had this beautiful experience in Italy, most especially with gelato, and then you recently participated in something that's pretty cool. It's the Gelato Festival competition. Can you explain a little bit more because you came in first?
So, it's interesting. So 3 years ago, was it three? I think 3 years ago, I was living in Northern Ontario in Sault Ste. Marie, and I said to my husband, "Oh, I would love to compete in this competition. Like, but this year we're too far, it wouldn't make sense, whatever. One day I would love to just to see what would happen." And then last year, I was very pregnant and I received an invitation to go compete. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, I want to do it. But also because I don't have a physical gelato shop, I was very intimidated. This is the first time in a while I've been like, am I good enough to do this? Because I'm going to go up against some of like the big guys in the city that have these stunning shops with, they make incredible product. But I was like, whatever. I thought, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to lose. Okay, at least I went and I did it. It'll give me my first taste. And it's not the first time I've competed in something, so I understand the competition life. And they basically said to me, if you want any chance in placing, you need to come with a unique flavor. Like, please don't come with like pistachio or like stracciatella. Do something different. So I said, yeah, no problem. That's already my specialty. I love flavors that are outside the box, you know? So I was like, let's go. And I can tell a good story. Like, I have a life full of stories. So like, why not pull from that inspiration? And so I pulled inspiration from my grandfather, and I have a visceral memory of being 16, and he, you know, the very typical sitting with the cantucci, dipping it either Vinsanto, or in my grandfather's case, a lot of times it was a sweet vermouth. I loved that flavor. And I said, let's turn it into a gelato flavor. And that's what I did. I called it Il mio nonno, and it was a mascarpone base with a fig vermouth ripple and cantucci, you know, kind of crumbled in. I told the story. I was 9 months pregnant when I competed, which is like, it was so insane. It was a 12-hour day, belly out to here. And I was like, what am I doing? I was like, I hope this is worth it. And the judges were all wonderful. And they asked a lot of questions about my grandfather, shared the story. But I'm looking around and I'm like, oh my God, like I know this guy's shop. I've been to her gelato shop. I'm like, I sell retail, like I sell like retail online. I literally felt like I felt like a nobody. I kind of did. And I was like, this is crazy. Anyways, but everybody was wonderful. Um, and then they called my name first place. I was sitting there and I was like, I almost didn't have a reaction. I, I sat there and I was like, sorry, me? Did you call my name? And the running joke was like, everybody was so happy because I was super pregnant. And, the running joke was like, pack the diaper bag because the baby is coming with you to the next steps kind of thing. And it was incredible. And I'm so glad that the timing worked out, where maybe 3 years ago, I wouldn't have been ready to do it. But I felt confident no matter what, I felt so confident in the product that I made that having a store or not having a store, I knew the product was a 10 out of 10.
Wow. Yeah. And I think that's a beautiful testament
Yeah.
to self-doubt kind of creeping in, but doing it anyway, right? Because look at the end result. And congratulations on doing it pregnant. Woo! Women are amazing for that very reason. Because you know what? I can understand not doing something like that at 9 months, but I know what 9 months pregnant feels like. And that's a pretty crazy feat. So good for you. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
And you did mention that you had some experience with competition. So you were in the summer baking challenge. Can you tell us about that? Because even there you were in top 3.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
So, the quintessential dream was to always sort of do something with the Food Network. And when they slid into my DMs on Instagram, I was like, I didn't answer them for 2 weeks. I thought it was fake. And they kept kind of like coming back at me, being like, Stephanie, like, can you please like respond, answer the email? And then whatever I did. And it all worked out. It was all very real. I didn't really know that's how sometimes that's how the casting process goes. They reach out over social media, which I also think is cool because I don't have a crazy huge following. And so it was also validating that people are still seeing my stuff, regardless of the fact that I'm not like a huge influencer, so that was really cool. And yeah, it was season 2 of Summer Baking Championship. The company has the Baking Championship series. They do Halloween and Christmas, or Halloween and holiday. Sorry, they're the two biggest ones. And then spring and summer are the newer franchises. And it was epic. It was me and 10 other chefs from all over the place. I was one of 2 Canadians because it was Food Network US. And it was like an instant, bond we all shared. I ended up actually knowing someone, another Italian chef from Toronto, who then went and opened something in New York. And so that was just so cool. And it truly is, I think unless you do a television cooking competition or baking competition, you can't really quite understand, because the timing is real. Everything's real. That they say go, you go. You have 90 minutes to bake and create something. And I had done a savory competition prior, and I will say it's totally different. You can't fix a cake if you screwed it up once it's in the oven, right? Like, you can't fix something that's melted or something that didn't set right. In savory, you can like, oh, it needs more salt. Oh, it needs whatever. You can add as you go. But it was truly an incredible experience. I think you have to be somebody that A, loves to compete, but also B, likes to be on TV, because that is a big part of it. You have cameras on you at all times. You make a mistake, you're mic'd. They can hear you. They'll send the camera running, like they want to get it all. They want the drama. It's still television, right? So it really was a very like affirming experience for me. Really a good boost, I think, that I had needed at that time.
Yeah, and I love that. Again, it's another perfect example that it's not about the numbers. Like I think especially since we're in a world that's sort of obsessed with these numbers, it goes to show just keep doing the work, right? Like just do the work, and people will notice, right? Sometimes it takes a little longer, but I think you've given really good examples of like even if you're nervous, if you're not sure, just do it anyways. If you're not the biggest blogger, influencer, etc., just keep going. So I think your examples are very valid. And I'm so happy that you're sharing them with us today. Thank you so much. You did speak about being on TV. So that's obviously one aspect and being comfortable with that. I know you've done some work on local television shows, lifestyle shows. So can you share a little bit about that too?
Yeah, I mean, when City Line was on television, like still a favorite segment of mine. I was a regular with them doing different baking segments, and it was cool because I could also tap into my former training. We did a lot of like health supportive stuff or gluten-free stuff with them, some cake decorating stuff with them. And I loved it, but I also think, like, I've been like this my whole life. I love to talk. I love to be expressive, and these are platforms that allowed me to do that and do it well. I'm grateful for that because it kind of gave me my first, like, chance to see what it was like to cook on camera so that when I ended up at the Food Network, I did feel comfortable with cameras over me when like something wasn't going right, I didn't crumble under that pressure, which I'm grateful for.
And I love that because I think that that's a perfect example of how like little steps, every little step leads you to what you're meant to do,
Exactly.
right? Because sometimes you get this opportunity and you're probably like, oh, it's like small time or like, oh, I don't know, maybe it's a waste, right? But meanwhile, it was like setting you up for something much bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. And it never really is a waste. Like if you're being your authentic self, like, and don't get me wrong, there was a time where like City Line said, hey, can you do this like vegan segment? And I said no, because I was like, I'm not vegan. Yeah, I know how to do that stuff, but I don't know that I want to go on TV and promote that just because, there's other people who I think should be doing that. Like that is their brand, that's what they do. And they were super understanding. And I do think it is about like, you have to, be authentic. And if you are authentic, no matter how smaller the gig is, somebody down the road might see that and might lead to something greater.
Yeah. I think if you're doing it with heart, right? Like it's doesn't matter because you're enjoying the process anyway. If someone notices, if it gets you something extra, that's bonus, right? But if you're doing it because you just love doing it, it's you're getting something out of it either way. So that's pretty cool. Wow. Well, okay, so you've obviously done so much and like it's so amazing, all these beautiful things that you've achieved. But you keep going back. You were mentioning a couple times, oh, but I don't have a set bakery, which I think obviously shows it doesn't always matter. But tell us a little bit how this operates because you do offer product, right? You're working out of your home, still producing amazing things. How can people get to you? How do they order from you?
Absolutely. So, I mean, listen, that is the goal. It is something I'm working towards. And the reality of the situation is I am capped at what I can do with gelato. Sure, I could be an online retailer, but in my heart, that's not what I want. I don't want to be in e-commerce because I love connection. I love talking to people. I love serving people. And I do think that with gelato, there's an experience part of it. Right. And I think you might be able to agree, like going to a gelato shop, sitting down or taking a cone to go. For me, it's more than just like scoop, go. It's like, I want to know you. I want to get to know you. You become a customer, like sit down, have a coffee. It's a whole thing for me. So that's where we're trying to get. Right. But in the meantime, I have a separate build out in my house, which I'm a very big believer if you're going to have a business from your house, do it properly. Make sure that you're licensed, make sure that you have your food handlers. We saw a lot of home businesses come up in the pandemic and hey, people got to make extra money. I'm all for it, but just make sure it's safe. And so that's a big thing for me. And so having that separate space allows me to keep my home life and my work life separately with how I'm cooking, what I'm using. So right now it's you place an order through the website, you can email me directly. And we set up a time for either delivery or pickup, and that's pretty much it. It's pretty seamless.
All right, that's awesome. Now, being at home, this is like kind of a bittersweet setup because you just became a new mama, Auguri. And so it allows you to be with your little guy. It's so beautiful. But at the same time, it's sort of a little bit of pressure because your home is also where you do your business. Explain a little bit about being a working mama, how that's changed things, and what a day looks like for you.
So, it's interesting because before I had my son, like I had worked for female chefs who had kids, and kids were coming to the restaurant, kids were around. I kind of loved that. I loved that like all in the family kind of vibe. And I always thought like, yeah, it's not that hard. That's what I'll do. Turns out it's hard. And the reality is, I think because I am a party of one and I don't have staff that like I can rely on, I can delegate things to, everything currently falls on me, right? So the emails, the social media, the actual going to get the ingredients, a big cake delivery, I'm doing it. Sometimes my husband has to come, so everything is on me. And that means that baby is also with me. And as easy as maybe from the outsider's perspective that might seem like, oh, how great she can be at home with her son, it's a lot when I'm, working on something really technical and I've got a crying baby in the background. And how do I manage both? And so it is not, for the faint of heart. It requires a level of patience that, the reality is sometimes brings me to tears because, I want that role. I want that storefront so I can showcase everything I have to offer to people and in a way that is going to work for me and my family because I am realizing doing this out of the house, it has its limits and it also has its limits on what I can even do with my son, with my husband, and having that divide of space would really truly be helpful. That is my honest opinion. Some people might not agree with me. Some people may say no, stay at home, it is better. But from my experience offering what I'm offering, I do think having like a completely separate space would would be better.
Yeah. And you know what? I wish that for you. I hope your dreams come true because I know what it means. I have 3 kids and it's like a different kind of vibe. I think if you're not in it, it's a little bit hard to understand. Just because you become a mom doesn't mean that ambition goes away. And I think when you are an ambitious person, I think it fuels the fire even more because you're just like, okay, I want to do this thing. I want to show my kids that I can do it. So, yeah, it's a lot. But, I think that you have a lot of beautiful experiences behind you that I think you'll get to where you want to be, and I hope you do.
I feel like
Yeah.
I've had a very full life, but it's a life I chose. And I didn't have kids until like I'm 37, right? So I chose that before. I'm not saying that's good or bad, but because I had this very, in some ways, selfish career, this is a very good learning curve for me because I have to be mama, be wife, be business owner. How do we figure that out and make everybody happy, including myself?
100%, 100%. I think there's a lot of sacrifice that comes into it that people maybe are not always willing to do. And I don't say that in a negative way. I think it's just different comforts. I think some people, they just figure it's okay. I'll leave it alone because I just want my life to be comfortable in a different way. So I think it's only something you can answer. And like you said, like you will figure it out. You're on a learning curve right now, you'll figure it out. And I want to know, I have to know, does your little guy love gelato as much as his mama?
Okay, so he actually hasn't had it yet, okay? And
Okay.
not for any reason, but it's just like, he's 8 months. We're now we're getting into food. He's becoming more inquisitive and he's really like, but I will say when I am making stuff and he is in his chair watching, he is like wide-eyed, like wow, everything is like a wow factor. So I do love that. But when he is going to have gelato, I will be making it for him. Like it will be his mama's that he has first for sure.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And I can't wait to know which flavor. I mean, maybe you'll start off kind of like with the regular ones, but
Maybe.
I'm curious to know. I'm curious. I know maybe, right? Or maybe you'll just like throw it in. Start strong.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's so cute. What is it that you want people to experience when they take a bite of your food?
I want them to have a flavor experience. Like, that's usually what I say is, of course, I will make you a vanilla cake. If you are like, Stephanie, I don't want any of that. I just want a vanilla cake. Sure, I'll do that for you. But what I would prefer you to have is to try something new. Maybe try something you're questioning. Try something that you haven't had before. And I want you to take a bite and I want you to understand like the complexity behind dessert and that it can be this unique flavor experience and it can be something that's more than just, I just feel like a little sweet treat. It literally can be something that transports you to somewhere else. And I love that. I love a story with food, and I do think that I would love the opportunity to just share more of that with people.
Yeah, for sure. And,
Yeah.
I think you're a great example of someone who has really thought about what they want in their life and sort of taken those steps, actively taken those steps to get there. What is some advice that you would give someone who is looking at you and thinking, wow, I want to do that? I want to create my own thing, most especially in the culinary world. What advice could you give?
First, I would say don't rush. I'm kind of happy I came up in a different time where we kind of had to work through the ranks. And I'm not downplaying anything at all now. Like there's incredible culinary influencers out there, and I know a lot of people see that and they just like want to get there. But there is something to be said with like working the steps and like learning from other people because that is essentially truly how we grow. It's how we develop as a chef. It's how we develop our skills and our flavor profiles. We can take pictures of beautiful food, but does that beautiful food truly taste as good as it looks? And I really think that's my first thing is like just slow down, slow down. You can reinvent yourself and you can learn things at any point in life. I didn't full career switch at 25. That is still young, but I mean, I at 25 I did a complete career switch. At 30 is when I went to Italy. These things don't all have to happen so quickly. Slowing down allows you to really think about what you want and how you want that big picture to look.
Yeah, I agree totally. And, it seems like you've done a very good job of creating your own Dolce Vita. What you find is Dolce Vita. So, congratulations on that.
Thank
And
you.
I have to ask, of course, what is the one thing, or maybe there's multiple things that you do for your daily Dolce?
Well, now with the baby, it's a little bit different. No, my thing is I'm a big like I have to start my day in a calm setting with a coffee. It does not matter if I was up all night with my son. It does not matter if I was up all night working on an order or whatever the case may be. For me, like starting my day with piping a piping hot coffee or an espresso, it really just does not matter to me. It can be a standard coffee, it could be a espresso, it could be a cappuccino. I have to start my day with that. And maybe people will say, you shouldn't, you should start with your water and your breakfast. And I'm like, nah, like let me live, let me be happy. And it really does set the tone. If I've missed my morning coffee, things are going awry. Things are not, things are not smooth in my house.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, it's what everyone has their thing,
It
right?
really
So
is.
that's
It's been my thing really like for maybe 10 years and it still is like, let me just have that moment and everything else can follow after.
100%. It sets your day,
Yes.
right? Sets your Dolce day.
That's my go-to day.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. This was incredible. I loved learning about your journey, and I'm sure everyone has enjoyed listening to it as well. I wish you the most continued success, and I do believe that one day I will be visiting your gelato store, and I can't wait.
I believe so too.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you. Ciao.
Ciao.